It's Tuesday, April 16th, and we are joined right here at the top of the show by Daniel Whelan. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So tell everybody a little bit about what you're currently doing right now in terms of coaching. Where are you on staff at as a coach?
I am the men's soccer coach at the University of Mobile, and I'm also a staff coach at Gulf Coast Rangers.
And how long have you been at the University of Mobile?
How long?
Yeah, for how long have you been on staff at the University of Mobile?
9 years. 9 years.
9 years. And
Yes,
how many as a head coach versus a assistant?
I was an assistant from 2010 till the end of the 2013 season, and then I've been the head coach from 2014 until now.
Okay. And you've been with Gulf Coast Rangers or some version of Gulf Coast Rangers for how long?
That 9 years.
Okay, so about the same length of time there.
Yes.
And before you came into the Mobile area, where were you? What was a little bit of your background in terms of coaching or playing that kind of led you to end up in Mobile?
Well, I played collegiately at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, Florida, and before that, I played youth football in England, where I'm from, and when that wasn't working out, I was lucky enough to be able to come to the States, and I've been here ever since.
So let's go there for a second. In terms of your playing career coming up as a youth player from England, what part of England and what club or system were you connected to as a player coming up?
Well, I'm from Stockport, England, which is in Greater Manchester, and I went to Blackburn Rovers at the age of 11, and I was there from the age of 11 until I was almost 19. Um, I was released just before my 19th birthday. I suppose like the April before my 19th birthday, and then luckily enough, a guy walked into to like the not training, but we were all like kind of like hanging out one day, and a guy walked in who had been released 2 years previously, and he was at Embry Riddle in Daytona Beach, and he just said, "Would it be something that I would be interested in?" I said yes, and that was it really. Got accepted into the university, and to Daytona Beach I went.
Now, obviously, growing up in England and then playing with Blackburn Rovers, you're dreaming of playing in the Premier League, right? I mean, that's the dream that you're going for, right?
Absolutely, yeah, that was the dream.
And so you get close, right? You get it. It's a lot closer than most soccer players will ever get the opportunity to experience.
Yes.
What?
Well, yeah, close, yeah.
So what was that feeling like when they came in to kind of sit you down and say, "Hey, look, there's just not a future with us going forward"?
Uh, to be honest, for me, it wasn't a surprise because in the uh, I wasn't in the top 3 or 4 players in my age group. I'd seen many players previously who I knew were better than me through, at the same stage when they were under 19s, that hadn't gone on to get a professional contract. So it wasn't really a surprise. I kind of knew, in all reality, I think if you're honest, I think it wasn't really a surprise for me. Also, my dad would always say to me, they're using you to give the best players or the players they think have got a chance of playing first team football a game. So you need to use them to get the best you can out of them. So that was kind of my outlook on it, but it wasn't really a surprise, to be honest.
Now, growing up there in England, Do you have siblings?
One sister.
You have a sister. So basically, you were the only one in the house that was kind of pursuing this path of trying
Yes.
to become a professional footballer.
Yes.
So you're going through. You kind of, you're saying, okay, I could see the end of the road coming up, and so this is not shocking or earth shattering. I'm kind of coming to grips with reality.
Yeah.
Before the college opportunity, what were you looking at? What were you thinking about in terms of what you were going to look at next? Was it coaching then? Was it trying to move to a different academy,
No.
different club? What were you thinking?
Yeah. So at the time, Blackburn Rovers was a Premier League club, and the academy was a good academy. So they have exit trials. I think they still have them, which is basically every player that gets released, the PFA put on trials, and other clubs come. Um, I also had the opportunity to go to a few clubs that at the time were lower down the pyramid and maybe go there for a week of training. But again, I'd seen so many guys. It's so hard because if there's 20 Premier League clubs, but back then there was 92 professional clubs. There's more now if you include the professional teams that are full time in the conference. But 92 clubs releasing 10 to 12 players every year. That's a lot of players trying to get back in the game. So when the opportunity to come to Embry Riddle, get a degree, I really didn't pursue anything else just because, again, I'd seen so many people try and do that. And the way it would work would be, you'd go on a Monday, you may train, Tuesday'd be a light session, Thursday would be a game, or sorry, Wednesday would be a game, Thursday they tell you yes or no. So really, you've got one game to impress. And playing with a bunch of guys you don't really know and everything else. I just didn't think, it just wasn't something that I really pursued.
So were you at the time? Were you thinking coaching, or was that not even in the periphery of your mind at the moment? You were just thinking, hey, let me come to America, get a degree, play some soccer, and I'll figure it out after that.
No, I wasn't thinking coaching at all. I was really thinking, go get an education, go out 4 years, and just see what happens after the 4 years. The coaching part didn't really play into my mind till later on in my college career.
Were you doing any coaching while you were in school? I know a lot of players nowadays are will get involved in starting kind of getting their licenses and start coaching in clubs or in rec programs around the country, etc. Were you starting to kind of do that while you were in college, or did you not even think about that until towards the end?
No, I did do that. I did actually at Blackburn they made us do that. So we had to do our FA level 1 and level 2 because they were very aware of most of us weren't gonna be professional soccer players. So they did a really good job of trying to make sure we had to go to sixth form or college there. So we did our FA level 1 and level 2, and then when I got to Embry Riddle, I started doing individual sessions. Probably my second year there, but I didn't actually start doing any kind of club coaching until I came to Alabama.
So you're coaching at the University of Mobile, and
Yeah.
University of Mobile is an NAIA school,
Yes.
and you're also coaching with a local club, and they are a generational club, which is a thing that I'm very passionate about. A club that has a first team and then a youth team structure beneath it. And I for a lot of reasons, and I talk about this a lot on the show. For a lot of reasons, I feel like that is the way to go. It's the healthiest version of a club that you have a first team and you have youth teams attached to it, and there's a inside the club a player pathway to a first team. And recently, there was news that you have been named the head coach of the men's first team with Gulf Coast Rangers that play in the Gulf Coast Premier League. So, what are you looking at going into this Gulf Coast Premier League season as the new coach of the men's Rangers team?
Well, first of all, I think, like you said, the fact that you've got a first team now is huge for the club. I guess when you ask what I'm looking at, you mean like what are our goals throughout the season, or what do you mean?
Yeah, just what are you looking at in terms of the players that you have access to that are going to play in the team, and then what are the goals as a team within the league?
Well, the players that the goal of the club with regards to the playing with the players, or the you don't want to call them a playing staff because obviously they're not getting paid, but with regards to the players, is our ultimate goal is to one day be able to field a competitive team made up of players who have played for Gulf Coast Rangers through the youth system. So that's the goal, right? Like Athletic Bilbao do in Spain, where they only have players from the Basque region. So try and give our 10, 11, 12, 13 year olds a team to support, a team they can come and watch, and they can see some of the younger players out there, and they can go, I want to be that guy. I want to play for this team. That's the long term goal. The goal this season within that is to have um, eight current Gulf Coast Rangers, or eight homegrown players, I guess we would call them. Eight players who have played for us, or currently with us, or are about to finish with us. Eight of them in every match day squad. And we're allowed 22 players in the roster. So we want to have eight initially starting this year in every match day squad. And we think that's doable. Obviously, the younger players may have family vacations, and they may have different things going on. They may be going to some camps, they may be going to some recruiting visits at different colleges. So it may not always be the same age, but I think we can do that. We then are adding to the playing roster with coaches to kind of try and give it that community feel. That again, if you're a 9, 10, 12-year old and you get a chance to go watch your coach, typically our coaches and young players have really good relationships. So I think it's exciting, or I shouldn't say we think it's exciting for the player to be able to go watch his coach play, and and hopefully play how he's trying to get the young players to play. Although they'll probably make the exact same mistakes players make. And then do have a few spaces on the roster for players who we think can be impact players who can help us stay somewhere near the top of the table if that's possible.
So one of the things I want to jump on for just a second and kind of talk through, because I think it's so important, building off of this idea of a generational club and the aspirations of Gulf Coast Rangers integrating in their academy players, youth players into their first team, kind of following this example of Athletic Bilbao in Spain. When one of the issues that I see constantly when I am traveling around the U.S., having conversations with people involved in the game, is this lack of really understanding a true footballing culture. You lived
Right.
it growing up in England, and having the opportunity to play in the Blackburn Rovers Academy. And I think it's one of the big things that's missing for a lot of young players in America is they truly don't understand culture and what a real true football, authentic football culture really is. So this idea that you have some of these coaches within the staff that are on the roster and playing, you have some homegrown players that you identify as good enough to be on the roster, get playing time, etc., that you've been developing within the youth team, academy team setup. And then obviously you're bringing in some other difference makers, playmaker type players to kind of round out this roster. I think you guys are figuring out a pretty good formula for also at the same time of putting a competitive team on the field, also creating a really good foundation for these younger players to understand a football culture. Was that intentional, or do you think that's just gonna kind of be a happy byproduct of this setup that you are working on?
Well, I think Gerardo's the director of coaching. I think his vision was for it to have a cultural effect, to build, a soccer, not just a soccer like a soccer player, but a soccer person, and then you know. So the cultural part, I do think, is intentional from Gerardo. We've kind of got there in a really, you know, I wouldn't say by accident, but we got there in a way. So we kept losing, or we keep losing players at the youth level that travel 4 hours, 3 hours, or they'll club hop because a U15 team 45 minutes away is better, or 2 hours away. So we kind of sat down and said, what can we do to combat this? And one of the things we came up with was, giving the young players that deserve it a chance to play in the GCPL, because that's a better standard than what they could play at, because it's men's football. You'll be playing against a 28, 29, 30-year-old player. So rather than playing in your own age group, if you're that good at 16, 17, 18, then you can play men's football, which is what happens everywhere else in the world. So kind of did it to combat losing so many, not so many, but losing players that are traveling 4 hours, 3 hours, whatever it may be, to say, look, we have this option for the better players, or for the players that are good enough to do it. Why do you need to go, wherever it may be, to play when you can stay here and play on the GCPL team?
And those players that were playing and then kind of looking to find greener grass somewhere else, were they going for programming that was their own age, like a U15 team somewhere else, or were they
Yes.
looking at okay?
Yes, they'd go for programming in their own age, and sometimes they would go because their idea was, or I don't even know if it's the kid or the parents, but sometimes they go because, you know, I, in the parents' mind, the kid's mind, the other club does a better job promoting its players to colleges. Um, so that's part of the reason why they would say they were leaving. But if we feel like the highest level in Alabama is ECNL, I would think that most GCPL teams, or I would be very confident that most GCPL teams would be a U18 ECNL team. So we're hoping that it also serves as a player retention tool within the club.
So as you are working towards this first season in charge, this is the second year, the second season for
Yeah.
Rangers in the Gulf Coast Premier League.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in terms of on the field, last year the team made the playoffs. Is that correct?
It did, yes.
And so obviously that I'm assuming that would be the goal again this year is to do that. But in addition to your on the field goals and building towards the playoffs of the Gulf Coast Premier League, what are you hoping for in particular that group of players that are in the academy? They may be U18, U17
Right.
players in the academy that 8, 9, 10, or whatever that kind of float through the roster over the summer.
Yeah.
What is your hope as their coach for this summer? What are you hoping for them to get out of this experience?
Well, one, I hope they get a real view of soccer, and a different, because we will have international players on the team. We'll have players from different parts of the US. So one, we hope they get a real experience to what soccer means to some people, or the different levels available to players. And when I say levels, I mean I shouldn't call them levels. NCAA soccer, and the ice soccer, junior college soccer. There's really good players at all those levels, and I think sometimes we think, especially down here, because we are in Lower Alabama, we think, we see Alabama football and we think, okay, we're going to go play. I want to go play at North Carolina. And if I don't play at North Carolina, I'm not playing because everything else is terrible. And that's not the reality. There's a lot of very good college soccer programs all over the country. So hopefully it opens their minds to that a little bit, because I do think as a coach, sometimes a player will come to me and say, hey, coach, I want to play college soccer. And I'm like, okay, where do you want to go? And they'll say Wake Forest. And you're thinking that's just not going to happen. You can play college soccer, but it doesn't, there's other programs out there other than Wake Forest or whatever it may be. The second thing, or part of it, not necessarily in that order, but we want them to improve as soccer players. We want them to be challenged, to feel like what the club is doing for them is helping them in their pathway, whether that's moving on to college, whether they don't go play college, but they want to come back and play GCPL following summer. So just continue their love of the game, and thirdly, we hope that they're proud to play for the club and represent the club well.
So this will be as I mentioned, the first season that you're leading this team as their coach, and I think there's some excitement and energy building towards this season, a change in venue for the club, playing a little bit closer to the home training base compared to last year, I think will be a benefit for the club as well. Looking at the Rangers project as a whole, and kind of what you've observed over the last 9 years, what are you looking at in terms of what you hope to see over these next, say, 2, 3, or 4 years for the club as it continues to build and continues to grow?
Well, we'll say from where we were when I started, the level of our players now is much better, and I think that comes also because soccer has become much more popular in this country. You can find it, most Saturday mornings. It's on regular television as well as your NBC sports networks. So with that, I think the goal of the club, I wouldn't necessarily say it's about saying here, I think it's about continuing to build a soccer community that have more and more people play the game, and then as that happens, if the talent pool continues to get better and better, then having appropriate levels for those teams. But I think all in all, just continue to grow the game, try and be an impact in the community through the game. And hopefully the summer team will do that if we can get some decent attendances as well. Hopefully can create a little bit more exposure for the game, and put more people out there who may not watch soccer as much.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for spending some time with us, and look forward to seeing what progress is made this summer with the team and under your leadership. And again, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
That was Daniel Whelan, the head coach of the University of Mobile and one of the staff coaches at Gulf Coast Rangers Football Club. And they are located in South Alabama, right in the Mobile area. And the beautiful thing about this particular club and other clubs like it around the country is that they are a generational club. And it's really, really beneficial in so many ways, as we've talked about on the show. And I hope more clubs choose to follow in that pathway and in those footsteps, because it can really do a lot of good things for your club and your organization and your community. So